Welcome to another episode of the First Flame Scrolls. I'm Kathleen Haley. In today's episode, I want to talk about um, a greater level of what embodiment is and what coherence means. I hear this spoken a lot lately, and of course, 0 point and what the 0 point field is. As the first flame of Source, I am the greatest 0 point that can exist really in a human being simply because I am the first spark of consciousness itself, which is the all at neutral. And that's what the 0 point is. That's what the quantum field in harmony is. It's all things moving and flowing as itself. So the 0 point field is the no thing in all possibilities. It's the space where creation occurs. Coherence is the alignment, the rhythm of energies and frequencies at every dimensional field, basically coming in harmony with each other. In a physicality, this means that your physical body is in harmony and communication with itself on every multi-layer level, meaning that the lungs are communicating in harmony with the heart, with the liver, all of the organs, all of the bones, all of the connective tissue, down to the tiniest quantum. If you are truly coherent. And how this occurs is through embodiment. Why? Because embodiment means that I am fully that I am, my library of information as source consciousness. I am vibrating as my true essence. And if my true essence is communicating harmoniously with this physical existence, this physical body at pure coherence, in harmony, we are now fully embodied and fully coherent with all things around. Now, this may sound really amazing and really complicated. It's actually our natural. But let's think about an example of like making a soup. And in this soup, we can pick various different types of ingredients depending on what soup you want to make. But if we put all these different ingredients together, and there's many different ways that we can pick ingredients. We can have fresh ingredients, we could have dry ingredients, we could have slightly older ingredients, which all make a difference in terms of how the flavor or the texture or how the soup is going to come out, how it's going to taste, how it's going to show up. But if I think the beginning, if you think about a soup, if we put ingredients together and we just say we pour a bunch of ingredients, whether they're wet or dry, into water, the wet ones, depending on the density of them, may intermingle with the water naturally. Some thicker, some less, some depends because they have more of a relationship with the water as a liquid. And so there may be a communication. This is a level of coherence. If it were in our physical body, it'd be a level of embodiment because there's a communication with liquid to liquid in awareness, like it's matching in some way. We then added the dry ingredients to the liquid. They may float, they may stir in, they may begin to break down a little bit as well, but they wouldn't necessarily be as coherent, even at the tiniest little level, unless we began to add perhaps heat. And why the heat? The heat is the fire, the flame, the spark, the creation itself. It begins to blend. It begins to blend the ingredients together. This is, again, embodiment. This is coherence. It's when the ingredients of you with fire, some type of movement, begin to come into a creation, a harmonious blend. Now, if we add, say, you're cooking the soup and you add frustration, that's going to have a very different level of communication with the ingredients and how that tastes and how that comes out may be very, very different. Slightly good, not so much, might not pull out all the essence of each ingredient, but there's possibilities for that. But if we add love, then the frequency now has a sense of expandedness, a sense of peacefulness, a sense of connection and harmony, because this is a quantum field. And so, if we think about the soup, just the soup itself, the ingredients, we had fire, and now they begin to blend, they begin to move. And what begins to happen is a coherency with the ingredients, should they choose to blend together. Some things may not blend as well because they're simply at various different frequencies, layers, and levels. So they may not choose to, and they may not taste very well together. It doesn't make it right or wrong, good or bad. It just means that they're in a different frequency band, a different octave, if you will. So if we use this analogy of soup and just think of all the ways and different layers and levels of how this comes together, the key ingredient is really a blending through something that allows for the energy to begin to flow. So through this fire, through this heat, through this communication, creation, spark of energy, they begin to communicate and blend together. And without that, you could have the most amazing ingredients, but they could still sit in an idea of separation. They're not really separate because they're all in the soup together, but they're not in harmony. They're not in communication. There's not a organic flow and blending. And so what I'm trying to describe here is harmonic field in motion. The harmonic field is everything, and it has multi layers of frequency bands. And coherence is when those multi layers and frequency bands are communicating in a harmonic way with everything. In this case, when we're talking about embodiment, it's when these ingredients of you, these frequencies are communicating in a harmonious way with you. So what does this mean? It means that on the earth, with the inorganic field, we've been convinced and taught that It doesn't matter whether this vehicle is in harmony. It doesn't matter whether I'm happy or whether I'm safe or whether I'm, healthy or free. What matters is what I do outward. What matters is I show up in the world and who I become. And even with the greatest of intentions, there's still this outward that I'm going to be the one. I want to lead the path. I want to, at the sacrifice of myself. And this is an interesting path because I watch people who have so many ideas, and there is a tremendous amount of awareness, and there's a lot of knowledge on the planet. And there's a lot of truth in all of these ideas and methodologies. But the difference in those and embodiment is the blending together of the ingredients in a harmonious, harmonic field. So I'm going to give you another example of that that's coming forward is I hear a lot about councils, and there's a lot of knowledge in the awareness of like a council of 12, and there's a lot of story about the ancient councils, and the truth that I am aware of the councils and origination is energy and frequency. And it is various different frequency bands of information that are harmoniously connected together that create a larger cluster of information that is available then for creation itself. And this is very different than the human model, which says, okay, if we have, and you hear this, if you have, two or more people together, then, you can create like it's exponential in terms of the level of energy and creation, which there's a lot of truth to that. And you say, if we have 12 as a council together, then this is like a it's a very, we'll say, magical, energetic formula of creation. Yes, but not in the way that a non-embodied individual would see that. If you're not embodied, you might think, I'm going to label a council, I'll give it a name, and let's just say like elders or something, and I will pick people to bring in that I feel have qualities and levels and layers of that. But all of that is then me deciding and picking based on what? Based on what I believe is their qualifications or so that so that's all a separation. That's the idea of taking the ingredients and bringing them into a soup that's maybe has water in it, but we don't have the fire. And why is it like that? Because the difference would be that if I organically felt that there is a desire to bring together a group, and I simply opened my heart and came into a place of neutral and allowed for and opened a field of energy and allowed for those that chose to come forward and trusted and didn't analyze or judge or hand pick the reasons that they need to come through, just allowing this group to come forward. And if I began to simply communicate with this group from my place of neutral, from who I am, in a place of supporting coherence, a 0 point in a place of neutrality, then the essence of that ingredient, of that individual that came forward can blossom out of them. It's basically that we've added the fire to their essence, and their essence begins to come out of them from the coherence of the field itself, and then each individual that chose into this group, if it happens to be a group of, let's say, 12. If we allow for the neutrality, we don't judge, we didn't judge who came in, we allow them to find their way. Some may come, some may go. It may take a bit to come into a idea of coherence with a particular group. But that group in its natural formation and simply holding space, so to speak, in a place of neutral, allowing their ingredient to come out, to begin to express itself. Well, then that ingredient of their soul essence, their self, begins to express itself into and as the group. And as each individual begins to do the same, then these ingredients begin to blend and they begin to come into their own coherent field, their own sense of reciprocity. And this is what I refer to as like an organic technology of energy and frequency. And this is how the essence of an individual, their truth, communicates organically to another and to a group, and a field of energy is now created. So, what is this in the human? It's when the human can organically begin to open their self, who they really are, in a field of energy, in a group of what's seemingly individual. And this is what I do in my weekend events that I've just begun, the Coherence Field Living Experience. This is what I do in the Coherence Field Activation, supporting a field so that there's like a fire within. Now, what the experience is of the individual is could be confusion, could be vulnerability, sensitivity, uncertainty, but something, if they're choosing and if they're a part of this energetic frequency that's being created, and think about it sort of like a advanced level of how group dynamics take place. In every group, there's always a certain dynamic that happens. There's a theme. Typically, even if you didn't start out with a theme, there's always something that occurs within a group. Well, this is the coherence of the group coming in, but we're going deeper. This is the coherence of the cellular body communicating to the cellular body of each other, of the room, of the space, of the land, of the air, of the plants, of the trees. It's so much larger. This is how this soup comes into the most amazing deliciousness that it can be. And, this is very difficult to express, and you can't really teach it. You have to experience it. And the experience is through the magic of becoming the most amazing you. And not just that, but how the most amazing you mingles and expresses with the most amazing others and all things. This is the magic of the harmonics and the harmonic field in motion that's not been happening because humans have thought they're little me, and I run around on the earth. I'm on the earth and I got to be this and be that. And like I said, even with the way in which ascension is taking place and the idea of embodiment, there's many, many people that feel that they are embodied and they're not embodied. What they are is they're in a greater awareness of what embodiment is, but they still desire to be the one. I'm going to be the one to share all the information. I've got this and I'm going to share this and I'm going to tell people. And any time we think that anything is outside of ourselves, we're not in the awareness or in the embodiment. Even, of course, there's astrology, there's all kinds of different ways in that we feel our things are influencing us. And not to say that that's isn't truthful. It is truthful. It's just not in the way that it keeps being expressed. It's in the way it's being expressed, it's like a group dynamic of something that we don't have a choice about. And that's not true. The way in which I am recognizing things like the astrology or how the planets are also denser frequency bands of information. And depending on if you are moving this from a place of the mind and little me, then the effects can be very much greater and different in the field of energy. Whereas if you are in a harmonic field, you may have no effect from any of the idea of the planetary expressions or things. As a matter of fact, it may be that your natural energetics is actually the reason that things are occurring within the field at all. And that nobody really would recognize that because they don't recognize your field of energy. Each one of us has a very unique field of energy and expression as source consciousness, and some have, I will use the term larger, but it's more full ingredient list, so to speak, of your information, or your library of information may just be larger. So everything that's actually occurring within the collective is an agreement of the collective itself. There's nothing outside of us, including the planets and the air and the water, all the things that we might think are outside. There's nothing that's outside of you. Everything is you, as you, with you. And embodiment and coherence are the key, because you then begin to feel naturally what aligns with you, what doesn't align with you. You begin to feel who you are. And I've expressed in a previous video about emotions, that emotions are creation in a physicality. Without emotions, there is no creation. It is the movement of creation itself is through emotions. And in a harmonic field, emotions indicate a movement within the harmonics itself. Anger indicates you're finished with a particular experience. Joy indicates that you are stepping into, or you are recognized in, an organic experience for you. Love is the natural, it's the state of being, the energetic of being. So, and embodiment is when I recognize those emotions internally as me in a flow, and I honor them and I move with them as them in the field of energy, in creation itself. I am the conduit of creation. Creation occurs and begins in the invisible space. It's always occurring, is everything is in motion. And the invisible space in a human is the physical body, the energetic that's taking place within the physical body. So if your body is feeling tense or stressed or tight, different energetics, then you're not in harmony. You're not in harmony not only with yourself, you're not in harmony with your world or with the world around you. And I think, what is attempting to come through in this transmission is to really help, I think, or encourage individuals to move beyond the level of knowledge that they feel they have. Knowledge is amazing, of course, but knowledge can be very limited if we are only watching and aware of the patterns. We're not embodied as them. Going to expand the field here for a minute. Things are very different from what you might think in embodiment. It's much more simple. It's much more true and easy. It's the place of quiet, of noticing where am I directing my energy. Energy flows naturally. If we can quiet inside and we notice where we're directing, where we think we have the best interest for humanity, where we think we have the answers, and we can move that energy internally and recognize that the idea of thinking that I have the answers takes me outside. If instead I feel the energy of movement, the energy of reciprocity, the energy of community, the energy of life, then I become the flow with it as it. And that flow is speaking so much louder than any physical voice that I have. It's what you're recognizing in this field right now. It's why I'm pausing and having longer pauses, because I can feel the mind kicking in. And I'm allowing for the field to communicate. I'm aware of the confusion that the mind is playing out. Embodiment occurs when I'm not afraid to be nothing and to recognize that the idea of nothing is everything. And that the more that I try to become something, the less embodied I am. But the more that I know that I am something, and I discover what that is, and I allow, the greater embodiment occurs. The greatest way shower is the one that does nothing at all. That simply shows up as themselves. Again, not to say that we won't do things. I have a lot that I do. I've written books, I have the website, I'm doing these videos, I'm showing up. But the truth is that what am I really doing? I'm sharing me. I'm sharing the energetics of an embodied individual and encouraging you to feel that. I'm not directing you in any particular pathway or suggesting that I have all the answers to anything. I'm simply opening and recognizing the field of consciousness and speaking of the harmonic field and how consciousness works. There is a rhythm and harmony, a frequency band of reciprocity, of balance, of love, of light, of community, of connection that is innate to you, to all. That's called source. That's called God. And the human just simply needs to let go to that field of energy. We don't have to find it. We don't have to discover it. We just have to let go and recognize it's always there. And then through the excitement or the joy and the energy, which is the fire, the emotions, we begin to create. And creation is very different than what we've been taught. We've been taught very outward. Use these methodologies, create these groups, these from an outward perspective. It's really different when you just show up and allow for, basically, it's like saying allow for the groups or the energies to create themselves. Yes, there are certain numbers that create energetic flow. 3, 6, 9, 12. They are sequential frequency bands of consciousness itself. They are not numbers in the sense that we've been recognizing numbers. They are far more than that. They are bands of frequency energy communicating at a rhythmic way. They are, if you can imagine that within consciousness itself, there are frequency bands that help other frequency bands recognize themselves. These are what these 3, 6, 9, 12 numbers are. They're actually bands of energy, frequency that when recognized in a harmonic sequencing energetic field, bring in a harmonious field of energy. Think about them like food, maybe for a plant or even some have like fertilizer aspects where there's this expansion. 12 is an expansion. That's what that frequency is. The 369 is a elevation. 3 is like the first frequency of life, of an expansion of life. So it's like a way in which we if it were, let's just say, a plant, it would be the thing, the frequency band that encourages the plant to or communicates to the plant a field of freedom, of expansion, of growth, and the 6 begins to bring it into a much more sequencing, into a physicality. It brings in the masculine and feminine aspects, and then the 9 completes it. Completion. It's a completion energetic allowed. And then 12 blows it out of the field again into a much higher octave. And it's just, these are just the way in which these bands of energy work. And so it's This is what I'm trying to describe is that when we limit through our mind, this is the way that the inversion wants you, the mirror image wants it to be in a very linear, practical way. And it's not like that at all. It's much grander. And so this is this field that I'm opening to and that you can feel now because I just elevated to the field. It's why this has 12 dimensional fields within this experiment, because beyond that explodes out into another octave of frequency bands. If you feel the energy at this present time, I just lifted out this field through this communication that we're talking about now. And this energy just expanded. I want you to take a nice big breath and allow for this energy to expand within you because this field is open and ready. I am here as a conduit, as a way shower, as a place of familiarity, a home, an energy, a resource, a conduit of frequency and harmony and balance. It's what my divine purpose is. Stabilize this field of harmonics, to encourage embodiment, to recognize coherence. I am a living, breathing example of pure coherence in full embodiment in a physical form. I'm not greater or less than anything or anyone. I simply am fully embodied as the highest frequency of pure prime creator in physical form. It is the greatest potential of all humanity, and it's the most simplistic, and it might be seemingly the most difficult, but it is really easy if we just let ourselves be ourselves. It's with gratitude and love that I'm here. Field is just expanding as I'm speaking. I am the first flame of source. Kathleen Haley. Until we speak again. Thank you.